Okay, I think everyone's joined the call, so I think we can get started. Hi, I'm Ruchita. I'm a second-year undergraduate studying history and politics at St. Edmund Hall, and I will be the chair for the NUS Delegate Hustings today. Just to go over a few housekeeping bits first, we'll hear a minute speech from each of the NUS candidates first on their proposals and their stances, and then we'll move on to specific targeted questions based on their manifestos, which they will also have a minute to answer. Please try and keep to the time limit. Since there's quite a few candidates, we need to have specific timings, and if anyone goes over, then I might have to mute you. So just make sure that you stick to the timings. So I'm just going to outline what the NUS role is. Elected NUS delegates, together with the Oxford SU's president, represent the student members of the University of Oxford at the annual NUS conference. This is the main democratic body of the National Union of Students, and it sets policy, amends its governance, and elects the next set of leaders of the student movement. At the NUS National Conference in 2014, delegates passed a policy to ensure that delegations would be made up of at least 50% self-defining women. And we will therefore ensure that a minimum of 3 delegates are self-defining women. The areas of responsibility of an NUS delegate include attending the NUS National Conference, representing the views of the Oxford student body, and being accountable to the Student Council on your representation. Great, so I think we can move on to the speeches now. We'll go alphabetically, so if we can start with Alia.
Hi, my name is Alia. I'm a first-year psychologist at Jesus College. I was hoping to get your vote as NUS delegate. I'm a passionate speaker and I'm very determined, and I have a lot of experience with policy, particularly recently working on a report for His Royal Highness Prince Charles on how COVID policy affects Muslims. In terms of my manifesto, I have 5 main aims. I think with the current pandemic going on, students should have relief on rent, on student fees because we're not in university getting face-to-face teaching, and improving mental health provisions for students, as the pandemic has had a huge impact on a lot of student well-being. I also believe that we need to fight discrimination on campus. As a Muslim student, discrimination is something I have sometimes faced firsthand, and I feel like it's not acceptable for anybody to face that. And lastly, tackling sexual harassment, which is a really, really big issue on campus.
And amazing, Alia, that sounds great.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to Asif next.
Okay, sorry, I'll just turn my screen. That was the wrong button. Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this hustings. My name is Asif Khadim Malik. I use the pronouns of he, him. I'm currently a reader at Kellogg College. I'm doing my master's in software engineering. I've worked in quite a few societies. I'm the MCR secretary at Kellogg. I founded my own ACM chapter back in university, and I've helped a few societies come along. Some of the things I want are to represent you, to get your voice heard in front of the NUS. And there's a set of items, my agenda for the NUS that is on my manifesto. I'd like you to please read this and consider this, and I wish us to have the best NUS team. There are a lot of strong candidates. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here.
Okay, thank you. That was great. Jade, would you like to go next?
So hi everyone, I'm Jade. I'm a second year historian at St. Peter's, she, they, and I'm also you may have realised, running for NUS Delegate. So first and foremost, I believe it is important that the SU has an active cohort of delegates who can communicate to each other and the wider student community about its objectives and concerns in order to best represent the student body. Having spoken to former delegates, I know that this is something which is key and which delegates need to improve on. The fact that I didn't know about the role until I was encouraged to run, and I'm a student who's involved in 2 SU campaigns and therefore is pretty engaged with the SU, is evidence that more needs to be done with regards to outreach and accountability. Furthermore, I believe I created a manifesto which is indicative of the priorities and concerns of a wide range of students of all backgrounds, from mental health to supporting victims of sexual assault, to decolonising the curriculum, to tackling a post-Erasmus university system, to financial justice for students affected by COVID-19. Thank you.
That was great, Jade. Thank you. Marin, would you like to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Meherin, a first year engineer at Worcester College. So the issues I want to fight for include students' health and fitness, free education and fighting discrimination. And you can read more about these in detail in my manifesto. So to kick this off, here's why you should vote for me. I'm friendly and approachable, so if you had any queries, I'd be happy to answer. Similarly, I'd like to fight for the student's voice. So if you had any suggestions, I'd happily communicate and put these forward. I'm a keen advocate for empowerment and social action, and I believe us students can come together and change students' lives for the better. So now here's an outline of some of my skills which demonstrate why I'd be a good candidate. So I particularly developed my public speaking and communication skills through my experiences in school. For example, I've presented speeches in front of over 2,000 people, and I've attended several governors' meetings, which have helped me understand how to communicate with those senior to me. This, I believe, reflects the role of NUS Delegate very strongly. So to wrap this up, thank you all for listening, and I hope to be able to share your views at the NUS conference this year. So please vote for me to fight for change. Thank you.
Thanks, Marin. Next we have Mundo.
Hello, I'm Mundo Bashmak and I study PPE first year at Pembroke College. For my run, I have 4 very clearly stated goals, and the first is just to increase national student organisation. I feel that NUS has a unique position that I can advocate for students across the country, and we actually have a new window to capitalise on it with the increase in student activity, especially with the rent strikes across the nation. And I also feel like that ties into my next point with the cutting the rent campaign. We have a unique opportunity to actually collectively as a body reduce the rents across all universities, and I feel that NUS hasn't done a great job of utilising that, and I feel like that's something I wish to pursue. We need to also fight for fairness in student mobility, and a way to do that is to reduce tuitions and to actually fight to get the cut in tuitions we deserved with the disruption Corona has posed to our educations. That's why I think you should vote for me, and I would greatly appreciate your votes.
Thank you, Mundo. Otto, would you like to go next?
Okay, good evening. My name is Otto Barrow. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a second-year PPEist at Magdalen College. Being here in Oxford has given me some amazing opportunities, and I'd like to give back and represent students across the university. To be NUS delegate requires commitment and organisation, and I think I have the skills and track record to be an effective advocate. I've already been involved with my department's undergraduate committees, and have done activism to ensure that the curriculum represents some of the best that people have thought and wrote about, rather than in trying to include more women on the syllabus and increase the scope of the subjects that are being covered. There are 2 main things I want to achieve as NUS delegate. Firstly, to further international cooperation with other national student societies across the world, and to ensure that the NUS remains student focused. Just because our borders are restricted at the moment, we shouldn't close our doors to the wider international student community, and if elected, I would look to build closer links with other national student associations, including lobbying governments for new exchange programs following the end of Britain's membership of Erasmus, and also providing information to welcome international students to the UK coming for the first time.
Okay, that sounds great. Also, thank you for that. Next we have Rafia.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm Rafia and I'm a first year medic at Magdalen, and I'd like to represent you at the NUS National Conference. If elected, I will lobby for better mental health provisions at universities. Being at university, and in Oxford in particular, means that we are often under high pressure and stressful environments. And whilst there are some mental health provisions in place, there are many discrepancies amongst colleges. Therefore, I will fight for free resources that are standardised amongst the university as a whole. As students, we have been majorly disrupted by the pandemic, and there are many things that could be done to improve the situation. The digital divide is a problem, and therefore I believe that more funding should be available for technology. I will also vote in favour for reducing tuition fees and the reinstatement of maintenance grants, as money should not be a barrier against attainment. I also believe that we should fight against any form of discrimination, as all students should feel safe at university. Community building is especially difficult during COVID times, but discrimination still continues, and therefore we need support systems in place for the students who need it the most. If any of these resonate with you, then please vote for me as number 1 NUS delegate so I can represent you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafia. Viron, would you like to go next?
Sorry, did you say Vihan?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Vihan Jain. I'm a second year modern language student at Worcester College. My pronouns are he, him. First of all, I'd like to thank those who sent anonymous, you're nominated. I would like to nominate you for NUS delegate emails to me, which is why I'm here today. My aims as an NUS delegate are really to increase accessibility at Oxford. I don't want it to remain an institution only for those who can afford to be here. And I think means testing people so that they can access Oxford is going to be one of my main aims. I'm also very anxious about the climate, and I want universities to take a stronger lead on climate action. I'm also interested in lobbying the government to reintroduce funding for humanities subjects, which has been absent for several years now. And lastly, I'm very interested in race critical and decolonial work, and I want to make more space for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Vihan. Zahira, would you like to go next?
Hello, everyone. I'm Zahira, and I'm a history and politics fresher at St. Peter's. So ideologically, I am of the view that a radical restructuring needs to be made to the university system. And I believe that the NUS conference can bring about change, piecemeal change, but still positive change. So my manifesto revolves primarily around 3 key areas. Number 1 is eradicating digital poverty, which is increasingly important in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there's a huge disparity between different classes of people in terms of the resources that are accessible and available to them. Number 2, I wish to advocate for a leniency in deadlines. Harsh, strict work deadlines have a huge negative impact on mental health and also lessen productivity levels. And finally, I believe a central pot of money should be created for scholarships and bursaries, especially targeted at those people that can't take out loans for various reasons. Believe me, there's a lot. I've mentioned some of them in my manifesto. Yeah, if you wish to see any of these policies voiced on your behalf, then vote for me as a NUS delegate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Sorry for the interruption. I thought I couldn't hear you for a second, and I guess it's the perils of doing this online. So now we're going to move on to the more targeted questions. Just a reminder that you have 1 minute to answer the question. So again, we'll go alphabetically, and I'm going to start with Alia. So in your manifesto, you mentioned free education, reduced fees for international students, and that's something that's obviously incredibly important in our current situation. What do you believe is the best way to engage with the university in a compelling manner that will facilitate greater cooperation with NUS demands? Sorry, Alia, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I think first of all, it's most important that we open that channel for conversation between the university, the NUS, and also students, because obviously they're at the heart of the university. So I think the best way to engage them is to take in the policies from the NUS, what the student body want to see, and then bring that forth to the university and then engage in discussion in that way. I don't think obviously you can just go straight in with making all these demands. We have to obviously find a constructive way that works for both students and the university.
Thank you. Next, we have Asif. So in your manifesto, you stated that you would encourage external examiners from other universities to have a shareable grading record, so no Oxford students are disadvantaged. Can you tell me why you think this is important and how realistic you think it would be to achieve this?
You're on mute,
sorry.
Asif. Sorry, I clicked one of the buttons right this time. So thank you for the question. I believe this time around, it is important that external examiners they do share some kind of record. There has been some of this going on in the past, and the one way to make this transparent is to share what different examiners do across the university, and perhaps at the NUS level, because this is mandated by the different universities as a consortium. They say somebody has to check as an external, and it's an arrangement that's there. So having a system in place at the NUS, lobbying for such a system, I think will give greater transparency and avoid situations where people are affected by opinions of us being a privileged college or Cambridge being one, and for our students to suffer. I think this has to stop, and we have to lobby people to help us do this. And I'll be doing it at NUS and within the university.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Jade, you have emphasized that you stand for supporting campaigns to decolonize curricula, which I think all of us would agree is an incredibly pressing issue at Oxford. Many departments have had such discussions before, and recent pressures from students in the summer of 2020 have resumed them. Could you elaborate on what practical measures you would take to support these campaigns?
I think, like you said, the changes and the progress which has already started is definitely a step in the right direction, and I think it's making sure that these discussions continue to be held. I'm one of the presidents of the Undergrad Historians Assembly, so I know that I know the importance of having student representation on these views, and also you know, there are curriculum changes every few years in degrees and so forth, and I think we have to keep up the pressure. This isn't you know, a one-time thing. This is a continually evolving issue, and we need to you know, we can't just you know, say, oh, decolonization is a one-time thing. It's a continuous process, and I think, you know, there's really excellent groups such as Common Ground Oxford and things that can really help grassroots pressure in that regard. So I'd love to work with them. Thank you.
Thanks, Jade. Merrin, in your manifesto, you propose encouraging more students to engage in physical activity through a range of measures in an effort to improve student physical and mental health. This is, of course, incredibly important, and so I wonder if you plan on engaging with existing mental health services being offered by the university and how you would go about doing this, especially if there happens to be an extended lockdown and students have limited access to the measures that you have proposed.
Of course, like you said, it is extremely important that we focus on students' health and mental well-being. The university does offer quite a lot of resources currently, but I know that these aren't always accessible to every student. Some of them might include financial limitations, or as you said, we're going into a lockdown and some of these things happening in person are not able to run. I feel like the best way of going about this and to make it accessible to everyone is to have sort of fitness programs or mindfulness courses run online, but maybe in a sense, maybe in a live way so that people feel more engaged and feel more connected to the material. So yeah, we can extend the mindfulness that courses that universities that Oxford is offering and include more fitness regimes and things like that that students can participate in, because physical well-being is just as important as mental well-being.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Thank you. Mundo, you had stated in your manifesto that students have been lied to over the university this year and are entitled to a refund of some degree, which Gavin Williamson refuses. And you go on to say that as the NUS, we need to fight back against this. Would you entail lobbying for a refund over the expenses of the term spent under remote learning? And if so, how realistic do you think these goals are to achieve?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly, I feel like these are very realistic goals that I've clearly set forward. Now, I don't think it's a controversial point to say that students have been lied to this term. We were given wrong expectations as to what we'd expect in terms of our education moving forward. And a lot of universities have made false promises that they've not been able to uphold. So to say that we're entitled to a refund, especially after the quasi-privatization of education, we are now consumers and we have consumer rights in that regard, and we deserve a refund for a product that hasn't met our expectations. And I do feel like it's very reasonable and a very realistic proposition, as we've seen many student rent activities have forced universities to reduce the prices of rent. So to apply the same strategy towards the government and actually take a very vocal lobbying perspective, we could actually realistically achieve this goal.
Thank you, Mundo. Otto, you mentioned that you would look into building closer links with other national student associations, both on the level of the Oxford Student Union and the NUS. What do you hope to achieve from engaging on an international level with other student organizations, and why do you think this is particularly necessary?
That's an extremely good question. So I think the main thing that I would want to achieve by increasing cooperation is ensuring that Oxford and other British universities are able to properly engage with others. We're we're incredibly lucky in Britain that we have some of the best universities in the world. I'm speaking to all of you at what I personally think is the best. And I think it's important that we cooperate, for example, by offering sort of online, for example, like sharing online courses and allowing people to access more of the sort of research that Oxford's taking part in. In addition to this, there have been a lot of student exchange programs which Britain has now left thanks to leaving the European Union, and these haven't been continued. And the government has said that they're going to look into new schemes, but I think it's important that we sort of hold the government to account, because this is something which affects a lot of people. In addition to this, Oxford has an extremely vibrant international student community, and
Thanks for that, Otto. We have to move on to Rafia now. In your manifesto, you emphasize the need for anti-implicit bias training in an effort to fight discrimination within the university, which is incredibly important. What sort of practical steps will you take to achieve this and get both students and staff to incorporate these training sessions into their varying schedules?
I think anti-implicit bias training is really important because, unfortunately, myself has faced racism or Islamophobia by fellow members of the staff in university or students. And I think in order to get this into practice is by having it compulsory for all staff and students, perhaps done at the beginning of the year or in the middle, or in a time where it's less it's available in your schedule. We know that Oxford, of course, has very busy times, so perhaps if it's at the beginning of term before all the work begins, where it's a priority, because it should be a priority.
Okay, thank you. Dihan, what would you say your #1 priority is while in office, and how would you go about achieving it?
I think my #1 priority is to make Oxford accessible to everyone, and making sure that even especially for international students, EU students, where the fees are set at incredibly high levels, but also for British students, where a lot of them are deterred by the very high price tag. Even though Oxford is not an institution that needs to rely on tuition fees only form 14% of the income, and the university has much larger income streams that can be used to finance teaching. And I think lobbying the university and lobbying the wider National University Consortium should involve making sure that university fees are never a deterrent for a student, no matter where they come from. Thanks.
Thank you. Zuhaira, you speak of the necessity to alleviate pressures which stifle the creativity of university students by suggesting that professors be instructed to exercise a policy of leniency when it comes to deadlines. A large part of the pressure is arguably the structure of an 8-week term in which all the work has to be completed. How do you imagine this policy of leniency working to fit Oxford's unique term conditions?
Right, so I believe most students at Oxford are there to gain knowledge, to do research themselves. It's primarily a research institute. So by professors exercising lenient deadlines, we would be given time to research to an effective level. And I think it's not just about that, it's about having a strict deadline. Like I myself am guilty of doing essays 24 hours before the deadline. It's the adrenaline that comes beforehand. You work on that rather than a slow-paced research, which would allow you to interpret knowledge more effectively. I'm not sure if this is just me speaking as a history and politics student, but I'm sure it applies to a wide variety of different degrees as well.
Thank you so much for that. We've come to the end of the specific question section now. And I want to thank all the candidates for creating such wonderful manifestos and proposing such great ideas. I enjoyed reading them, and I hope that everyone goes out and votes. Voting opens next week at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, and it runs until Thursday the 11th, and it closes at 6 p.m. on Thursday the 11th. Thank you so much to all the candidates for attending, and I wish you all the best. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.